So Chaw Chaw, Bruce Lee, and cat scratches are three things in common that come out of this podcast. So you're going to have to stick around toward the end to find out what I'm talking. Button. And I just hit it. So we're going to go with this. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms. I am the founder of this podcast and movement known as the W2 Capitalist. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. He saw me fumbling around here. I actually hit the record button before I didn't need to. But anyway, today I'm joined by Ryan Chaw. It's like Shaw, but with a C, right? So Ryan graduated with a doctorate in pharmacy. You might be the most educated person I've had on the podcast so far. But in 2015, at age 23, so something about the math doesn't, we're going to dive into that a little bit because I feel like maybe you're just like this uber smart guy who blew through college and got his doctorate, but I want to dive into that here in a minute. Ryan loves his job, but he wanted to do something more in life, right? He didn't want to become just the pharmacist. I'm using air quotes if you're listening to the podcast and not watching on YouTube. But so he worked, I'm sorry, I totally screwed that up. I might cut this out. Man. Anyway, Ryan was inspired to become a real estate investor by his grandpa, who bought 3 properties in the Bay Area. So you're out in California, right?
That's right. Yep. Sacramento, California.
Sacramento, California. So the 3 rentals that you saw your grandfather purchase, the rental income from those covered all the expenses and allowed him to retire early, right? And now his grandpa was even able to use that rental income to help cover his grandchildren's college tuition. So your grandfather started thinking about some generational wealth, which is something I am getting into now, right? So Ryan bought his first property in 2016 as a single family home at the local college. He rented it out per bedroom, which I think is really cool, to college students, and renovated to add extra bedrooms to increase rental property. That's so freaking awesome, right? So now I'm going to fast forward just a little bit. Ryan makes a little over $10,000 a month in rental income. 3 of the properties are on 15-year mortgages. I want to make sure we dive into that, because what's the strategy there, right? So talk about that. And even one of his properties is on a 10-year mortgage, which is crazy, right? So now Ryan is teaching others his system, how to find college towns to invest near, analyzing a deal, generating tenant leads through strong marketing tactics, and how to self-manage college tenants, which that has to be a job in of itself. Because I remember what I was like in college, and landlord, I'm pretty sure my landlord hated me. Anyway, because you strive to have hands off, right, and have everything automated.
Exactly. So, yes.
In his free time, Ryan travels to many foreign countries just to absorb the culture and life outside of California. So far, Ryan has been to China, Japan, Taiwan, the Bahamas, Canada, Paris, London, Germany, and Mexico. And I've had my passport stamped once. So I am honored to have you here, man, today as our special guest here on the W2 Capitalist podcast. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be on the show, Jay.
Hey, the honor is all mine. All right. But let's dive into this. So you got your doctorate in pharmacy at age 23. Now, if I'm doing the math correctly, you blew through some schooling to be able to get your doctorate, right?
Yeah. So my college actually offered something called a 2+3 program, where it's like 2 years of undergrad and 3 years of pharmacy school. And I was able to get my pharmacy degree, a doctorate of pharmacy degree after that. So that's how it was so fast.
Do you have to have a doctorate to be a pharmacist or no?
Not necessarily, but nowadays I think the board for most states, I think they require a doctorate.
And we're not talking about the recent plunge of medical marijuana pharmacists. We're talking about an actual pharmacist that works in one of these big brand pharmacies, or are we talking about municipal marijuana?
Well, actually, I got a side business of marijuana. No, I'm just kidding. No, but we're talking about the legit, like legal drug dealers, right?
Yeah,
I'm
a
legal drug dealer. Yeah, let's go with that.
That's good. That's good. All right, so college towns, college tenants. I think when I was in college, technology has dramatically changed a lot since then, right? As far as how things can get automated or whatnot. But tell us about the college town, like the system you've come up with to get, especially in a high, you know, when I think of there's a lot of thoughts that come to mind when I think of California. Number one is, or one of the things is unaffordable real estate, right? But you've been
Yeah.
able to figure that out. So talk about that a little bit. And then I want to get into just how you've automated things so that you, you have less issues with college tenants, right?
hmm Yeah, sure, for sure. So let me just talk about my inspiration real quick. So yes, I was definitely inspired by my grandpa, but one thing that also inspired me, or actually drove me to do this, is I started my first job at a hospital pharmacy, and then on the first day in, I started asking some pharmacists some questions and like, "What do you like about your job?" Right? And one of the senior pharmacists, he was like in his 60s, right? And he said, "To be honest, dude, I hate it here. I would have quit a long time ago, but I need to still collect my paycheck, right?" So I was like, "Oh man, I guess I
Day
can't really do this
day
forever."
one, as you're going into the field that you have been thinking about and you want to get into that. Was this before college,
Yeah.
right?
This was sorry.
This was
Go ahead.
before college when you had this conversation, or was this
Oh no,
after?
actually, it was soon after I graduated.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
now you've went to school for this. You've graduated. You got
yeah.
your first job. Hey, man, you've been in this field. You're about to retire. What do you love about this job? And the guy says, I hate it here. I just need to collect the paycheck.
Yeah.
That
It's
had to
pretty much
be,
how it went. Pretty
yeah,
much how it went. Yeah.
that had to be
Uh,
eye-opening and frustrating
oh
for
yeah,
sure. So
for sure.
anyway, I
Yeah.
interrupted you. Go continue on, please, sir.
All good. Yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to get started as soon as possible. So I actually did work a lot overtime. I worked 6 days a week. I actually took up a second job. I worked retail as well. And then I just saved up a bunch of capital because we know real estate is capital intensive. I mean, you could definitely be creative, but it's good to have that capital. So then I dived straight into my first rental in 2016, a year after I started working. And I actually at one point, it wasn't always that easy. At one point, I was down $30,000. I lost a lot of money on that first property due to a lot of unexpected repairs.
Mm.
But then I pulled myself out of it. Obviously, I was depressed for some time. I was like, "Am I really good at this? Can I really make this work?" Right? But then I kept at it because I knew my grandpa made it work, and eventually, properties will appreciate, the rents will go up, keep up with inflation, right? And then I just kept reinvesting the cash flow and my W 2 income. And then I even took out some equity on my first property because it actually did go up $60,000. So I guess that's the silver lining of,
Yeah.
I lost 30,000, but it went up 60,000 in equity. And so I took that out as a HELOC and then put that on the property. And then I just bought one property a year. It really accelerated the process by renting out per bedroom because you're
Mm-hmm.
basically taking a single family unit or single family home and making it a multi-family unit by renting out per bedroom and maximizing your profits. Usually I could double my profits actually. And
Yeah.
so it sped up the whole process. I was able to scale it, and over the course of just 4 years, I was able to purchase 4 single-family homes, put in 18 tenants. That makes $10,755 per month in rental income.
Awesome. Let me ask you this though. You said that you on the very first property. By the way, you still own it today, right? Because that was your
Yeah, I still own
2016. You're
it.
four
Yep.
years into it. So what do you mean you lost 30,000 into it? It sounds like maybe you ran into some unexpected capital expenses that you had to fix right away, right?
Yeah, there was a lot. So it's a 100-year-old property,
Okay.
and that
I
that
got
was
one
the
of
first
those.
mistake. That was the first mistake. 100-year-old properties, a lot of things tend to break down. One of the things I should have done was a sewage line inspection because it was so
Mm,
old. The house had cast iron pipes, so they were rusted over and they had roots sticking into them. But we
sure.
didn't find out until sewage started coming out of the kitchen sink, and I got a call at
Oh.
like 11 p.m. on a weekend. So
Now
you can imagine I was like, what the heck is going on,
that
And then I was
is
calling up a lot of people, someone to get over there to sanitize the area,
Yeah.
obviously, and then a plumber. He stuck a camera down the sink and the pipe, and he discovered that the whole pipe was broken and had to be replaced. So that cost $9,000.
So you didn't do an inspection beforehand, or you did like what's considered like a four. Um, oh, my mind just
I
went
think it's
blank.
like 4 point home
4 point.
inspection.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
4 point home. You just did a
yeah,
4 point home inspection, which does
yeah.
not include scoping the
It did not.
sewer line.
No,
So
exactly.
the lesson learned here: if it's a home of a certain age, pay the extra money to have the inspector scope the sewer line. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I would say any home before the 1980s, because that's when they started
Yeah.
switching out the cast iron pipe for PVC.
Yeah.
PVC tended to not have those issues because it doesn't rust
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
iron pipes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know what you're talking about because I had
Yeah.
a property that I bought. It was a 1950s build, late 1950s,
Oh, yeah.
and they used terracotta clay as far
Oh,
as it wasn't cast iron, but um, the the thing is that terracotta clay over time it would begin to the soil would shift or whatnot, and little leaks of water would come out, and then tree roots would find its way in, and
oh,
I
yep.
had to replace a section of pipe as well. So,
Yeah.
my neighbor came over because I lived on the side of a mountain. My neighbor came over. He goes, pretty sure your sewage is running into my yard. I was like, what? That's how we discovered it wasn't backing up
Oh,
into
man.
our house, but it
Yeah.
was running over. I was like, man. Anyway, so
Oh, that's not good.
how do you clean up sewage backing? We're not going to get into that. That's
Oh,
it.
no. Yeah.
Let's all right. So
All the gory details.
yeah. So
Oh,
let's talk
man.
about this rent per room because I think that's pretty incredible. I know a
Yeah.
lot of folks are doing it now with Airbnb type situations, and there's a lot of guys in the mastermind who, they're single or they're recently married, and either them or them and their spouse, they will turn in and rent their rooms, their extra bedrooms in their primary residence to other folks, right? Like traveling nurses or whatnot. But how do you go about renting per room, right? Does each room like its own lease, or and if so, then how do you evict somebody who is just in that single room? And then another question is how do you
Vet them.
yeah, how do you vet them? But because they're college kids, they probably have no credit history. At least I
Yeah.
didn't when I was in college. And then the common areas. How do you like? I had several roommates in college. One was my brother,
Mm-hmm.
and one was a couple of friends of mine. One friend he was pretty rowdy. Where
Mm-hmm.
guys were, you know, late teens, early
Right.
20s, and just doing guy stuff. We'd start wrestling around or with whoever was over visiting, and there would be big holes that would be put in the wall that we had to fix, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, man.
so how do you keep charge of all that, or calculate all that, or keep those guys accountable? So I threw a
Yeah.
lot at
See.
you there. So let's start
Oh,
this.
no worries.
How do you vet those tenants, those college tenants coming in who may not have any sort of credit history or job history or anything like that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think that's the common perception that these tenants are going to be, especially college tenants, they're going to be rowdy. They're going to cause a lot of trouble. It's going to be a lot of management work. But I find that's not the case because I use this, I call it the P.R.I.M.E method for vetting the tenants. So I'll just run through it. P stands for placement of ads. So you have to put your ads where your tenants hang out so that you have a large volume of potential tenants to choose from that you can be picky and choosy who you bring into your house. So
Gotcha.
usually I target like third or fourth year college students, those who have already got their party life out, they're they're
Wait,
usually
what
professional
about
students.
those 5-year students who haven't figured that out yet?
Yeah, see, I look for that too, I also look for, what major they are too. So I usually target more like pharmacy school students, dental students, medical students, because I know those studies are a lot more intensive than
Yeah,
like
that's
undergraduate
smart.
studies, right? And they're taking like midterms and finals back to back, one after another, and they're really focused on their studies, so they don't have time for someone who wants to party up, have a house party, right? So
Yeah.
placing those ads in the right place where they hang out, because if you place your ads in, basically where they don't hang out, you're fishing in an empty pond. So the
Hmm.
first time I started advertising my house, I actually had a vacancy for 8 months. which cost me $4,800 for that vacancy because I just put a for rent sign on the lawn. So I was just getting calls from people, but they were just like usually unqualified people, not even students, right? For the most part. R stands for reviewing social media. So I do kind of a background check by looking through their Facebook, right? So do they have any pictures of them smoking, doing drugs, alcohol, going to a bunch of raves, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of
Do a
identify
little
what type they
stalking.
are.
Yeah, you do a little stalking
A
there,
little bit
which
of
works
stalking,
out.
yeah,
I
exactly.
have I have heard that a lot of employers are doing that now. They even pay. There's
Oh
even
yeah,
businesses and companies that come up that do
definitely.
that, and it on the job side of thing, it bothers me a little bit because
Yeah.
you're on the rental side. I mean, you're I don't know. I think I'm going to contradict myself here. I
Well, you want to make sure they're going to make a good tenant. It doesn't,
You
it's
do.
not so much about their personality as are they going to be a good tenant as well,
Yeah.
right?
And I guess the
Yeah.
employer is trying to figure out if they're going to make a good employee. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I have been very hard one way. I don't like corporate America
Oh
for a
yeah.
lot of
No,
reasons. But,
I
um,
share that opinion. Yeah.
but I just, and I think the more they do to try to fit people in this box of here,
Right.
you need to come in, you need to fit in this box and you're going to do this job. You're not going to be able to think outside that box, lack of better
Mhm.
phrase. Um, and I don't like that because I think it destroys creativity.
Yeah.
Anyway, those people who do that and are okay with that are probably not listening to this podcast anyway, and
Yeah.
me or anything. So,
Exactly. I
all
think
right,
that's a
so
great point. So it has to be just one factor. It's not
yeah,
just like a hit or miss. You want to look at the other three factors. Like I stands for identifying the type of tenant they are. So how are they responding to you? How are they talking to you, right? Are they constantly asking for a cheaper deal? Are they difficult to communicate with? Do they get angry easily?
mm,
And let's say someone does have pictures of them partying and all of that, but they seem to be very professional when they communicate with me. They are very responsive as well. Then yeah, I'll say, hey, you know what, this guy seems like a nice guy. I think he'll be a good tenant, right?
yeah,
So that brings me to the next point: measuring responsiveness. M stands for measure responsiveness. So that's typically the more responsive they are, the more mature they are, the faster they can get back to you if something comes up. Like let's say there's late rent, right? You don't want to wait 3 weeks for someone to pay you the late rent, right? You want them getting back to you right away. So that makes for a good tenant. And then of course, E stands for ensuring proof of income, making sure they can afford the rent. Usually it's the parents actually who pay the rent. So you get bank statements or pay stubs from the parents to make sure that they can afford the rent.
And I was gonna. Do you? I'm glad you brought up parents. Do you make the parents also sign on the lease
I
or no?
do, yeah. I
Yeah.
usually have them co-sign. And then so I guess the point about like the having rowdy tenants and especially like around the common areas. For the common areas, I do try to limit them. So like if I have a huge living room, for example, right? One of my strategies is adding those extra bedrooms because every extra bedroom you can add is an extra $620 I can charge in rent,
Yeah.
which is a lot. That's like an extra $600 cash flow right off the bat, right? So what I try to do sometimes is split the living room in half, or I'll turn like an extra family bedroom, or sorry, an extra family room into an extra bedroom.
Okay. Okay. So you do a little conversion. So there's some construction costs there, but in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
you do have some added cash flow there with the return on the costs is pretty phenomenal, is what you're saying, right?
Oh yeah,
To convert those.
definitely.
I want to go back to something. I kind of skipped over this because we started talking about the sewer line was 9 grand on that very first property.
Mm-hmm.
You had some other expenses come up that totaled 30,000. The point I want to
Mm-hmm.
make, you said you lost 30,000. You haven't lost anything yet, right? Because
Yeah,
you and I love this quote. I really wish I could remember. I need to look this up because I say it a lot. Is that you make your money when you buy, but you realize your gains when you sell, right? So
that's right.
regardless of
Yeah,
whatever kind of property it is. So technically you haven't
such a
lost
good point.
anything, but you did have to come out of pocket more, maybe put some of that stuff on credit cards or whatnot, more than you thought you would have in the beginning but you really haven't lost it just yet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because that full cycle hasn't happened yet. But the cool thing is you were able to pull a home equity line of credit out of it to, it sounds like maybe to cover that cost, but also add some additional bedrooms either with this property or help you purchase the next one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
all of that. Exactly. So you could use a HELOC for repairs. You can also use it as a down payment toward the next house as well.
yeah,
So when I found that out, I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take it out.
I
Because
like
it's
it.
just sitting there, right?
Yeah.
If you don't use it, then the money's just sitting there. And one of the number one jobs of money is to make more money, right? Because you really want to scale that wealth.
Yep.
And so
And
if it's just
I'm just
yeah.
saying, I want to say this. When I was in college, I didn't know that. It
Oh,
took me like 15 years after college to figure that out. And that I
right.
wish they taught that in school from grade school on up is the number one thing. If you're going to go out in the working, get in the real world and make money, when you have that money, the number one thing you should use it to do is make more money. That is not taught. We are taught as a society to be consumers because that's how the economy works and that's how taxes get paid and that's how the government just, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. We're going to change topics. All right. So, all right. So you go through this P.R.I.M.E method, which sounds like something you created to identify these tenants, right? And
High quality tenants. Yeah.
high quality tenants is a better phrase for that. How do you make it more automated from a rent collection standpoint, maintenance issues? What are some of the tips and tricks that you're using now that we should be looking at if we're self-managing, right?
Yeah, great question. So I would say having a team of contractors, having a system in place. So everything that comes up, let's say a tenant complains about another tenant, you have the system for that. You have a protocol that you follow each time for that. So let's say a tenant complains about another tenant. The first time that happened, I made the mistake of calling up the other tenent right away and saying, hey, this guy's complaining about you. And that didn't work out very well
Oh
because
no,
the other guy's like,
you don't
this
get
guy's
brought
called.
into being the parent of the
Yeah,
two
exactly. Because
tenants.
you end up being the middleman, right? And then you're like, the other guy's like, well, this idiot's, talking about me behind my
Yeah,
back to the landlord. And so that just kind of makes the situation a lot worse, right?
yeah,
So what
yeah.
I found is, okay, I got to do tenant empowerment. So the guy who did complain, I say, okay, why don't you have, you're an adult now, right? Why don't you have a one-on-one discussion with the guy, right? Come up with an action plan. Say why you're upset. Then
Yeah.
come up with an action plan, implement the action plan. And if things still don't work out, then yes, you can come back to me. And I have like a template email for that. I just shoot over to them. It's the same thing every time. And then after I send that email, honestly, I haven't had problems after that.
All right. So there sounds like that's the secret sauce, right? Because these folks, your tenants, college students, they're coming in, they're renting a room, maybe for a semester or a quarter or whatnot. They don't know who's going to be in the other rooms, right? So it's kind of luck of the draw
Yeah.
of if they're going to do this. And so I can kind of see where they're not able to pick their roommates, where I might just call the landlord and say, look, this guy that you put in here next to me, he's a total douchebag and he's, he's doing all this stuff late at night when I'm trying to, so I see that. I'm curious though, the secret sauce, what's in that email? What does it say? Is it just
Honestly,
a reminder of, hey, here are the rules that you signed up for when you moved in? Just want to remind everybody it's that time of year where, you don't necessarily call anybody out, but you just say, look, every couple of weeks, I'm going to send you guys this reminder. Here's the first time, don't be an a-hole, be respectful of your roommate who's probably studying for a midterm or final and blah, blah, blah. What's in it? What's in the letter?
well, it's about creating connections. So first off, I
Okay.
usually say, look, I understand what you're going through. I also had roommates in college that did that, right? I found what helps out is to try this. And then I provide them, say, talk one-on-one with them, right? And then try to come up with a solution together and see if that will work. If that doesn't work, yes, you can come back to me. But say, I am here for them, right? And creating that connection is really important. And so they understand that you are trying as a landlord as well. And then they realize that, oh, okay, so this is mainly something that I have to kind of
Yeah.
make work, right? Because
You're
the landlord can only
transitioning
do so
into
much.
you're transitioning into adulthood. Go have an adult conversation. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
yeah.
And then
So
they realize, well, yeah, if I can't help this, then most likely the landlord's not going to really
yeah.
help too much more.
Have you ever had a tenant move out because of their roommate it just wasn't working out? You ever had a tenant want to cut their lease short?
I did have a tenant want to cut their lease short, but that's when you have to say, hey, we did sign a lease together, right? And you do have to enforce the rules on that.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah. So after I had that conversation with them, usually they can figure out how to make it work.
make it work.
Honestly, a lot of times it's just during finals week. I find it usually happens during midterms or finals. Stress is high, dishes are piling up. A lot of dirty dishes, right? And
Yeah,
then after finals, everyone's relieved. They
yeah,
celebrate.
yeah,
They make up, right? And then I don't get any complaints after that, right? So usually that's another thing I just realized, it's kind of a temporary thing a lot of times,
yeah.
they'll eventually get over it,
Get over it. Yeah. Are you
But
saying
some people hold a grudge, but for the most part, yeah, it's
dishes are
fine.
piling up? I think the only thing that I cooked in college was ramen noodles. The rest of it was fast food. It was, hey, the quickest thing because I wanted to go do whatever I was doing, but it was just, I don't know. Maybe is that part of your questionnaire? Your prime method is, do you cook? I'm joking. I'm joking.
Oh yeah, first question I asked. No.
Yeah. Are you a cook?
Yeah, I guess the last thing is you could always, if it does get really bad, you could always go to the students' parents and,
yeah.
and
Like,
mention, like if it's like they're smoking pot and they're being really noisy and police are coming over and stuff, then that's when I would kind of just go to the parent. I only had to do that one time. And it was on the very first year I started. So I definitely
get
got a lot more experience since then.
get the hard stuff out of the way first, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got the experience you can lie on to make sure that works. All right. So what are some of the things though that you run into maintenance wise, and how do you handle those in an automated way? You said you have this group of contractors or subs, right? These guys who focus on their specialties. You
hmm
self manage these properties. How often are you contacting them? One thing I'm really curious about is excuse me, tenants, your college tenants, if they're there for a
hmm
semester or for a quarter, you have pretty frequent turnover, right? So
hmm
what's the cost? What are you looking to do when a tenant turns over and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so for the tenant turnover, I do back-to-back leases actually. So they have the option of subleasing during the summer, which is totally fine. There's usually a
Okay.
lot of summer school students. Actually, pharmacy school and dental school, they go year round.
Okay.
So they go through the summer, and whenever I get a pharmacy student, they do want a 1 year lease anyways. So yeah, I just offer minimum 1 year lease. That's how I deal with that turnover. Some people stay usually 2 or 3 years, and some people will only stay 1 year, which is totally fine with me because usually I can rely on referrals. I usually ask them, okay, you're interested in leaving. Do you have anyone who might want to take your place, right? Maybe a
Yeah.
friend or something like that. And then, so I have like 18 tenants giving me referrals
Nice.
potentially. So that's kind of like how the system is created. You kind of create your reputation. You have that volume. You're
Yeah.
able to get a lot of people um, easily. So it's not a big hassle like, oh, or you're never worrying like, oh, am I never not going to have a tenant fill the space,
Yeah.
for this year or something like that. And even during coronavirus, I filled the rooms for fall semester
Okay.
just fine. So yeah, it really works out.
And
What was your other question? Oh yeah, contractors. So I
yeah.
do have a team of like handymen and contractors. Handymen, typically they're more specialized in like one area. Like I'll have a guy who always does flooring, right? And then GCs, general contractors, they can do the bigger projects. Like if I wanted to put up some walls
hmm
or maybe cut a hole in the
You got
wall,
to
create
make
a
a new
hallway or
doorway.
something, do a huge renovation project or whatnot. I've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have those contractors for that. But basically, if something does come up, like let's say they say there's a leak or the toilet's not working, I'll just forward that text message to the handyman,
Yep.
the respective handyman, and then they'll just take care of it. And then they'll send me a bill. and I'll cut them a check. And it's pretty much all hands off. They can even let themselves in because they have the numeric code to the key to open the door. So it's all automated.
So
Yeah.
all your properties have electronic entry, right? Do the
Mhm.
individual rooms, the individual bedrooms also have electronic entry?
The individual rooms do have a lock, but it's just like a pinhole key lock. So if you
Gotcha.
just, yeah, it's,
Okay.
yeah.
So you have, I'm going to get this straight. I think something just connected for me. You have 4 single family properties,
Hmm.
but you've divided up the bedrooms and you've added some bedrooms and you've got 18 tenants.
Yeah.
So you've got 4 properties that equal 18 units, right? Because
Hmm.
anytime I hear about a unit, it's a door, and I've always pictured the door in the front of the building that's how you cash flow, right? So a duplex has 2 units, triplex has 3 units. You're kind of turning this whole thing on its head and saying, no, I'm making a single family. I'm going inside. I'm counting the doors inside, and that's the units that I'm going to rent out. And I've never thought about that and
Yeah, man.
in that way. So that's pretty freaking cool. And given that they're single family homes, you get better financing terms
Yeah,
because if you went out and you
exactly.
try to find an 18 unit apartment complex now,
Right.
um,
They want a higher down payment. There's like interest only, and there's the ARM
and
and balloon
terms are not as
payments and
good.
stuff.
So
Yeah.
this is interesting, man. This is an interesting concept. So
Oh,
how
yeah.
is this the school that you went to and you graduated from?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So so size of the school, how many students are enrolled? Is it a big area or is it like the place I went to school? The school is basically the only thing. It went to undergrad. The school is basically the only thing
In
happening
that
in
area.
that area,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
it's just probably the most part um, that
College towns.
for
Yeah.
college towns, right? The
Yeah.
biggest populace is the student bodies that are
It's
coming
the
in.
students.
So
Yep.
how big is the college? What first of all, what's the name of the college that you were referring to, and how
It's
big
a
is it?
UOP in Stockton,
Okay,
California.
okay.
Yeah.
How big of a school is it?
It's
From
about
a
5,200 students, I think, this year.
okay, so
For on,
not
yeah,
like dramatically, not
not
a really
dramatically
big
big, but
school.
yeah, if you think about it though, I have 18 tenants, but that's only
Yeah,
0.3% of the total tenant body, the total
yeah,
number of students. So,
yeah,
I have a very low market share, but I'm able to make 6-figure income from it,
yeah.
so it's really great. And I love that point you brought up about, dividing the bedrooms. All my houses started out as 3 beds, 2 baths, right?
Okay.
And I was actually able to create 4 beds and 5 beds out of them, or even put
Wow.
in 2 tenants in 1 room,
And
right?
still the 2 2 baths, right?
Yeah, still the
Uh,
2 baths. Yeah, so
no,
it's a
wait a
good
minute.
ratio.
You just said 2 tenants per 1 room. How does that work out? Like if somebody knows somebody else,
Yeah.
or how does that work?
So usually, you'll get some couples also
Okay.
interested in the property, and then when you have a couple, I could say, if you wanted to rent out the master bedroom, you'll pay a little bit less each, or a good amount less each, and then it's about like 30%. So let's say I were to rent out, well, let's say the normal is $500, right? I
Okay.
would increase it by 30%. So that would be what, 650 or
650.
something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I would just divide that by 2, and then that's how much I would rent it out for.
Gotcha. Okay. So in these 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses that you have, do all of them have a master suite, right? Where
Hmm.
one of the bathrooms is attached to one of the bedrooms. So is that just limited
Oh,
to the person who has the master, and then the other 2 bedrooms are fighting over for the one bath, or how's that work?
yeah. So one of them has, like you said, the bathroom attached to the master bedroom.
Okay.
The other 3 is shared. So
Okay.
yeah, they do have to share bathrooms usually.
So what I know we're getting in the weeds here, but this brings me the point I'm trying to make is most people, like most folks, and they're going to buy their primary residence, they're looking for, a 3-2 is kind of the average,
Hmm.
with one of the bedrooms having a master suite attached to it, right?
Hmm.
So you're kind of you've identified a market to where if it works out in your favor, so to speak, that if
Yeah.
The bathroom is not attached in the master suite.
Hmm.
That's where I was trying to go with that. So thank you for sticking with me on trying to
Oh
eventually get
yeah.
there.
We got there. We got there.
Yeah. So, all right.
Yeah.
So you're still
Oh, for
working full
sure.
time. You've identified this pretty awesome niche. Like I'm getting, because I look at where I went to school, which was Jacksonville State University. There you go.
Mhm.
2.5 GPA, by the way. I was not a doctorate.
Oh yeah.
I
All
was
good.
I would not be one of your tenants. Let's just put it that way. If I went through the P.R.I.M.E
That's a
method,
good one.
I would not be one of your tenants. I wouldn't even
You wouldn't have
pass.
passed.
I
Oh
wouldn't pass
man.
the P. I would not have passed the P.
Oh
So,
man. Oh man.
um, man, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, but it was a small school, right? I mean, I think there was
Hmm.
8,000, 8 or 9,000 people, and it was a commuter school, so it was kind of out in the middle of the country, and everybody basically just drove within a 20, 30
Right.
mile radius. But there were some
Uh-huh.
people who done that, and I kind of go back to that. I was like, I know that area is still. Would I go buy anything there?
Hmm.
And I'm kind of shunned it away. Number one, it's 7 hours away from where we live today. So I would, if I did the whole self-managing thing, which I'm against, that would be a struggle. But
Hmm.
when I've looked at I haven't looked at single families because I thought, okay, um, colleges, I want to buy the apartment complex. Matter of fact, the apartment complex that I lived in my entire college career came up for sale about a year ago,
Hmm.
and couldn't make it. I couldn't make the numbers work. I don't even know if it's still for sale, or I'm sure they got what they were asking for.
Hmm.
But that was kind of cool to kind of come full circle. Anyway,
Oh
you've now
yeah.
made me open my eyes to uh, smaller schools can work.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's
Definitely.
the kind of the key to the success is the P.R.I.M.E method, but also renting out and maximizing the number of bedrooms in a single family house. So that's pretty cool. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Pretty
I
good stuff.
honestly I feel like it's kind of a blue ocean, which means
Yeah.
it's just a strategy that's not used, that people don't talk about it, but there's so much opportunity in this area. You're renting out a bedroom for half the price of on-campus housing. So
Mm,
the on-campus dormitories, they charge like $1,200 a month, plus you have to buy a meal plan, right? Versus if you just stay off campus, it's half the price. You don't have to pay a meal plan, and you get all that privacy compared
yeah.
to like living in the college dorms.
Which in
Right.
dorms you don't get to pick your roommate most of the time anyway either,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
sleeping right next to somebody. There's like no, if it's a
I know there's no
shared,
wall or anything.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I never.
it's
I
tough.
was. I
You
had
wake up to their alarm. Oh man.
I
Yeah,
was
so it's
highly
nice.
fortunate. I didn't have to live in a dorm,
Oh,
but I know
deal
a
with
lot of people
that.
do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's great. And I do buy like within a 1 minute walk to their classes. Actually,
okay,
my houses are closer to their classes than some of the college dormitories as well. So it makes a
that's
lot of sense for
crazy.
people.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and but it's not considered on campus housing
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
not on campus property. Is essentially what
Technically.
it is. All right. So, how often do you go and physically visit these properties? How often do you
Oh, dude,
physically go?
honestly, the last time I went down to the property to do something was August of 2019, to be honest.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, because everything, like I said, having your team of contractors, and then like if you had to do any showings, you just have the previous tenants do the showings. You don't have to do
Ah,
any open houses yourself. Yeah.
nice.
So all of this is pretty much automated. Sometimes I even have the tenants contact the contractors directly if a
Yeah.
problem persists, and so they know to text the contractor directly and it gets done.
How so one thing that concerns me here, and I'm super conservative when it comes to investing though, is that
Hmm.
I think about how I lived as a college student, and I wasn't dirty or anything like that, but
Hmm.
our landlord would come by about every 3 months just to do a walkthrough, just to
Oh,
check the smoke detectors, right, and also
yeah.
check the air filter to make sure we were checking it. And we knew we would get the proper notice and whatnot, and we cleaned the hell out of that apartment before it came in, and
That's
just to
funny.
make sure. So you have
Yeah.
no concern about anything going on of that nature, or making sure the air filters are changed or anything like that.
Oh yeah, you definitely want to change your air filters
Okay.
for sure. I do it twice a year. about.
But you have your
Uh,
handyman do it. That's what you're
yeah, I
saying.
just have the handyman come
Gotcha.
in just as a schedule, and he just changes all of them out.
And he
As
can
far
report
as
back anything
issues as
else.
well, yeah.
That's
Yeah, he
good.
will. Yeah, for sure. Like if there's like an extra student, like maybe staying there or something, that would be a big thing.
Yeah.
But that really doesn't happen.
Well,
Yeah,
it kind of helps you out the way you've set the
yeah.
system up, that you have these individual bedrooms rented out. Is that
Hmm.
it seems like if another person is staying there and starting to cause some trouble, then some of your other tenants would raise a red flag after they've
Yeah,
attempted the adult conversation, and you would know
exactly.
about it anyway. So that's cool. All
Yeah.
right. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's on the distant near future for Ryan Chaw?
So I'm 28 now. By the time I hit 31, I could actually have my properties paid off just by reinvesting the cash flow on them, because there's quite a significant cash flow, and then just also putting some of my W-2 income into them, and then I could retire if I wanted to. I have that choice right
At
now
31.
at 31, yeah, and be able to have that 10,755 per month coming in, and just my normal income now.
Okay. So you're not
Yeah.
trying to add units, you're trying to pay off the notes that you have on the existing ones, and you're trying to accelerate that, right?
Right now I am, but I'm definitely flexible. It's
Yeah.
kind of like what Bruce Lee says, be like water. You have to be flexible. Water
Yeah.
fits the shape of the container it's in. So if like the economy tanks, let's just say the real estate market crashed, prices go down 20%, I would be buying like crazy. I'll be
Yeah.
taking out I have that massive HELOC, right, that I have ready. I just pour all of my money onto, 2, 3, 4 properties or whatever, right? And try to get
Yeah.
as many as possible, because eventually we'll definitely go back up, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
So
think in
I'm
the
ready
next
for that
year or so,
when that
you're going
happens.
to have that opportunity. And it's all,
It's a
regional.
cycle. I mean,
Yeah.
prices go up and they go down. Real estate has a cycle like anything else. No
Yeah.
one can say exactly when there will be a crash or a recession or
No.
whatever.
We all
To be
have our
honest,
crystal balls, but we're not
yeah.
sharing that information because we're greedy. So no,
I
no, I'm
guess,
just joking. So
but
when you talk
I
about the
wish.
price
I
of
wish I
these,
knew.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
With the prices of these houses that you're converting into these student rentals, renting by the bedroom, what kind of price range are we talking about in California,
Yeah, my
Sacramento
lowest
area?
for sure. So my smallest bedrooms, they go from 510 or 550 per month. Utilities aren't included, so they pay the utility
Oh
bill
wow.
separately. Yeah, and then it goes up to 670 for my most expensive room, or
And
690 I
what's
think
your
for my
purchase price
master.
on your average purchase price per
Ooh, nowadays it's
house?
around 300,000 for the current
Okay,
market. But the first one I got for 262,000, so kind of around
nice,
that. It
nice.
was, yeah.
So how do the tenants, if there's multiple tenants, how do they determine who puts the electrical or what the utility bill in their name? Or is your utility system out there so sophisticated they can figure out who owes what
On
per
their own.
bedroom? Yeah. Because it's a shared
Yeah,
bathroom, right?
right.
How does that work?
Yeah, so it's split evenly.
Okay.
Sometimes you have a group of friends come in, and then one of the friends will be like, "Okay, I'll just take charge of all the utilities. I'll pay the bill, and then split it among the rest." So that way, that's great on my part because I don't have to do anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the other ones, I do. I just add up the bills and I'll split it 4 or 5
Okay.
ways, depending on how many
Gotcha.
tenants there are. Yeah,
So yeah, effectively what you're doing is a RUBS situation where it's a master
yeah.
meter and it's split between all the tenants. All right, that's cool.
Mhm.
So in 5 years, you think you're going to be retired, or you think what's
In 3 years, I'll be retired
in three
potentially
years you're going
if
to be
I wanted to.
retired?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's going to be great to have
So
options, man. That's incredible. I
yeah.
wish I wish I was you when I was uh, your age, quite older than
Honestly, I think most W-2 workers could retire in about 8, 9, 10 years through real estate
Absolutely. They
easily.
absolutely can.
Yeah,
Yeah, you figured out
it's that
something kind of
powerful.
expedited a little bit further.
Exactly, and
There was a
that's not even assuming appreciation. I'm
no,
just assuming it's staying the same price. Nothing happens to like
yeah,
rent stay the same and everything. It will still be good by 31.
That's awesome.
So,
So
yeah.
is that the premise behind the 10-year and 15-year notes that you have? We didn't cover that, but I want to make sure we do.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
why go of 10, 15-year note versus a 30-year? What's
Yeah, I
the
figured since I'm still making cash flow on a 15-year loan and I'm able
yeah.
to
Yeah,
what do you
if you can
call it?
pull it off, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Since I'm still making cash flow and since I'm, what do you call it? I just wanted to pay him off sooner. It makes sense to do the 15-year because you do get a lower interest rate. It's usually about 0.5 to 1% lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay.
So I just was like, oh, I get a lower interest rate, might as well, since I'm gonna be paying them off
And,
anyways,
and it's
most
still
likely.
cash flows.
And it's still
That's
cash
good.
flow, so all good.
That's awesome.
I could always just hold it, and after 15 years, for sure, the countdown starts for sure. I'll be retired after 15 years.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. So today I'm going to introduce a new segment of the show, right? So Ryan, we're over. I told you before I hit the record button. I've got to be respectful. So, I found this app that asks these most random questions.
Oh man,
And I want to,
here we go.
yeah, I'm going to pull up one random. There's some that are not so friendly, family friendly that I'm going to skip past. Um,
R-rated. Oh jeez.
yeah, that I mean, like this. I'm not going to show you this one, but
Okay.
well, the thing is, somebody posted in the Facebook
Yeah.
group this morning that or yesterday that their son, who's 12, is now starting to recognize me and recognize my voice and stuff like that,
Oh,
and I
okay.
was like, oh, so I probably shouldn't be cussing as much on the podcast. That's probably not a good idea. So I
Oh
get pretty.
yeah.
Sometimes I get pretty wound up about stuff. Do you have
Yeah.
any kids right now?
No, I don't.
All right, so this will be a good one.
All right.
So random question, random topic. What
Yeah.
would be the absolute worst name you could give your child if you ever have kids?
Oh, absolute worst
What's
name.
the worst name?
Uh,
Think about your
screw
last
up.
name, Chaw,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Ooh. I guess if the first name was Chaw, it would be like Chaw Chaw. Would be
Chaw.
the.
That's pretty bad. That is pretty bad. It's,
That's it.
that's a
That
good one.
yeah.
That's a good one.
I'm sure I could come up with more creative ones, but
No, that's good. All right, you want to do one more?
yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Uh, let's see. All right, I got two here. The first one, it may be a quick answer. Have you ever been bitten or attacked by an animal? If so, what and why?
Oh, to be honest,
It
I
scares me
don't
how long
think.
you're having to think about this, by the way, because it's like you would.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've been scratched by a cat, before.
Were
Yeah, I've
you doing
definitely been
anything?
scratched by.
Were you doing anything to the cat, or it was just a cat being a cat? Just
When I was a kid, I liked to scare animals. So yeah, it probably was.
it was probably
It was
deserved.
probably me. It was probably well deserved. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
That's good.
I was
All right.
probably doing something like that. Yeah.
All right, this is a little bit more on the serious note. If you could bring one famous person back from the dead, who would you pick and why? That was good. That one goes a little deep. We
That
went
is
from
pretty
Chaw
deep.
Chaw getting scratched by a cat. Now we're bringing back a famous person
A
from the
famous
dead.
person. Oh man. There's a lot of good people out there. Honestly, Bruce Lee was one of the guys I looked
Okay.
up to for sure. He was not only really good at martial arts and obviously very physically fit, but he also had a lot of philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was a good big philosopher, and kind of just ask him some questions. Maybe what do you
Yeah.
feel like is the meaning of life, and I don't know, just
That's a good one.
what do you feel make success?
Yeah.
What makes a successful person and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
So
He's a great
I
guy.
think I just came up with the title for this episode. It's going to be,
Yeah.
what does Chaw Chaw, Bruce Lee, and cat scratches have in common?
Oh, geez.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
That would be interesting.
Ryan, I
But I
appreciate.
would like to see Bruce Lee versus Mayweather. That would be interesting.
I think Bruce Lee would take him down.
You think so? You think he would take him?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not. Well, part of that is I'm not a big Mayweather fan.
Oh yeah.
But Anyway,
That's another
yeah,
story. For
that's
sure,
another story
yeah.
for a different
Right,
podcast.
right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Ryan, I appreciate your time today, man. We've gone well over. I think the Prime system that you really made me think about this whole single family
Thank you.
buying rentals near a college and renting out the bedrooms, even though this sort of concept is talked about in the W2 Capitalist Mastermind almost every week, because we've got some guys who do Airbnb, like I was talking about earlier. So it's very interesting and eye opening for
Yeah.
me. Hopefully, it has been for. I'm sure it has been for people who are listening and watching this. If people want to follow up with you and just kind of pick your brain or whatnot, or dive into the Prime method a little bit more, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I got this free PDF I provide new investors just trying to get into real estate or interested in the rent by the room method. And you can contact me on my homepage actually at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com. That's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com. And newbie is spelled Newbie.
Nice. I'll make links to that in the show notes, and I'll also get your email, rchaw at newbierealestateinvesting.com as well. Do you
Yeah.
want your phone number on there? You good with that or no?
Oh man, yeah, you can throw it in.
All right.
Sure.
Here's what's going to
It's a
happen with that. One of my partners, Tim Kelly, we were interviewed on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and he, at the end, hey, what's the best way? He goes, my cell phone number. And I looked at him, I was like, you're giving your cell
what?
phone number? He goes, here's what's going to happen with this. He goes, the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who seriously want to contact me are going to reach out.
yeah.
And maybe 0.01% of people who listen to this, that's not actually going to happen. So if you're interested
We'll
in
see.
chatting with Ryan, his number is going to be in the show notes, and as well as his email. And I
Yeah.
highly recommend. I'm going to go register and download the form that you've got out there, because you really
Oh man.
made me think about this whole concept, because we've
Oh,
got
I'm
a few
glad, man.
colleges here locally, or not too far from where we live.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that
It's
I
an
want to get
untapped
into
market.
self-managing, but I got a feeling explaining this concept to a property manager who's used to doing things one way is going to be a struggle, and they're going to want to focus on doing it like as an Airbnb, where
Mm-hmm.
they get like 25% of the income versus a
Yeah.
10% property management fee, which
Right, right.
I'm not
That's a
gonna
huge
give up.
cut. Yeah, for
That's a
sure.
huge thing. I'm not doing that. All right, Ryan, thank you very
Yeah,
much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your knowledge, sharing with us, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
yeah. And I
Maybe
appreciate you
maybe
having me on the show.
maybe before your 31st birthday, you
Oh
can
yeah.
reveal what you're gonna do. Are you gonna retire, or what's the deal? I don't know. It's a
We'll
couple of years
see.
away,
We'll
man.
see.
All
Yeah, could be
right,
sooner. Who knows,
it
man?
could be. It could be.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you again, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jay.
All right, guys, we just wrapped up with Ryan Chaw, who's got this system down of, it's just incredible. Like I know we talk in the mastermind, the W2 Campus Mastermind weekly, on folks who, there's a couple of people in there who rent out the extra rooms in their house, in their primary residence. I've never thought about going and buying a single family residence to do this very exact same concept, and why that makes sense for a college town and everything that Ryan was talking about. So it's very interesting what may be happening next in the Helms household as far as where we're going with our investing strategy. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. What I would love to see happen next is that you go watch this video right here, or this one that's down here. All right.